Hello and welcome back to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I am sitting in front of my movie corner. And I'm wearing my Armor of God t-shirt, and I have my little Bible right up here, so you can see that that's going to be kind of the theme of the day. Is we're going to be talking about the Holy Bible. And we're continuing today with this series on Noah's Ark, the story that disproves the entire Bible. And this was done by a guy, his YouTube name is The Truth Hurts, but I'm sad to say that it's actually his truth that's going to get hurt because, his truth isn't very truthful. And so, in the last episode, I went ahead and I read the story of Noah's Ark out of, this is a Bible that I've used a few times on this channel. This is a Bible in American translation. Was made by the University of Chicago Press back in 1935, actually. And when we last left off, we left off on this chart, and at the end of the video, the end of the first video, I put this chart in because I wanted you guys to actually look at it and see what it does, because this guy's going to talk about this here in a minute. And as you can see, it says destruction by water, divine cause, warning given, humans spared, animals spared, and then preserved in a vessel, which is, kind of sort of some of the facets of the Noah's Ark story, okay? And as you can see, some of them, if you look, because I know that my picture's cutting out some of them, and that's why I was saying this is going to become important, because I'm going to actually point out some of these. And at the end of this video, I'll actually put up the chart where he checked off a bunch of these, and I will actually kind of talk about that stuff. And one of the things that I am going to talk about today is when we look at certain places, okay, there are different flood legends, and down in the comment section, or down in not in the comments but in the description section of the video, I will link to Answers in Genesis, which has a lot more comprehensive study of all of these flood legends, okay? Where they actually talk about where does it differ, how does it work, this kind of stuff. But it's important to know that, it's like, he's like, oh, well, destruction by water, that's like, that's like saying that, it's like, Pompeii living in the shadow of a volcano is going to be, destruction by volcano. If there's any, legends of Pompeii, they're pretty much all going to be destruction by volcano. And then he's going to talk about divine cause. And it's like, we'll get to this when we get to this, but, there's these certain parts, and I kind of wanted to go over each one in brief here, just because I think that it's necessary to understand that it's like concentric circles. You have the immediate area where it happened, and then as you start to get out away, like ripples, okay, things are going to change. The further and further away you get from the original source, the things are going to differ somewhat, okay? And so, I kind of wanted to talk about some of this different thing, because, like, if you look at Babylon, Gilgamesh's epic, which is one of the clearest accounts that actually talks almost the same that is in here, okay, as it is presented in the Bible, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, destruction by water, divine cause, warning given, humans spared, animals spared, preserved in a vessel, it's all in there, okay? Now, he's going to say, yes, they mention Noah by a different name. Well, that's because as languages developed, redeveloped, okay, then yeah, Noah's name would have been something different in every single language, okay? But they all talk about a man and his wife and his 3 sons and their 3 wives being spared. In most cases, in the ones where they're talking about humans being spared, which is like all of them except for like 1 or 2. Okay? So, honestly, for this guy to sit here and go, oh, you see all these flood legends, oh, you know, they have this and they have that and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You don't think that there might have been some commonality here? Especially most of these where they talk about, you know, they have a, you know, yes, they're all destruction by water. Okay. Most of them have a divine cause. Some of them have warnings given. Most, if not all of them, have humans being spared. Most of them have animals being spared. And almost all of them, except for like 3 of them that I can see on this chart, have, you know, the humans and the animals being spared as being preserved in a vessel. Okay? So, honestly, there's a hell of a lot of commonality in those. Okay? So, while he's talking here for a second, I'm going to kind of look up a couple things. So I'll let this run.
I found a list of flood legends sourced from all over the world, which on average share 4 out of the 6 basic similarities that the biblical...
Okay, let me see here. I just want to make sure that I get this spelled right. Okay. Because I'm going to talk about this here in a second.
Flood story contains. How can so many flood legends exist that share such common features with the biblical one? As Noah's descendants spread throughout the earth, it seems that they retold the story of the flood. In time, however, the story evidently became distorted into various forms. The first time I saw this, it kind of made sense, especially considering what happened at the Tower of Babel. Over time, the story was retold and retold until it got distorted into various forms. But when I broke down the exact categories, the locations, and the details of these specific floods, that hypothesis began to fall apart. I first thought it was bizarre how Watchtower included the category destruction by water. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen a major flood that hasn't brought some level of destruction by water. This would be...
Actually, volcanoes don't destroy by water. I mean, it's liquid mud, but it's silt. It's basically just a wall of mud coming at you. It's not... It's caused by the melting of ice, but there's so much dirt and other stuff that it picks up that lahars are literally like flows of hot mud and ash. So yeah, there can be other types of floods. Avalanche is another flood. You may not think of it as such, but that's what it is. It's a flood of ice. So yeah, I would think that for the purposes of wanting to be able to say that these are not something that has to deal with any other type of that type of flood, it is an actual just destruction by water.
Be the equivalent of me doing a table to find humans similar to myself and include in the box human. One aspect that was more surprising to me though was that only half of these flood legends were of divine cause. Considering how in the biblical account God warns Noah, God provides the specific building dimensions of the ark, God brings the animals, God brings the rain, God shuts the door, God approves of Noah's post-flood sacrifices. God plays a massive role in this story. But in almost half of these legends found all over the world, a god or gods don't even feature. If this hypothesis was true, that the prevalence of flood legends derives from a singular event in Genesis, then we would expect these legends to exist irrespective of their location.
Not necessarily, dude. So let's just take for an example Jesus, okay? as I stated in the first video on this, there is actually a lot of historians that agree that there was a Jewish man by the name of Yeshua who lived in Israel in around about the last part of the 1st century BC to the first part of the 1st century AD. Okay? They don't agree he had a virgin birth. A lot of historians believe that, that Joseph got Mary pregnant. A lot of secular historians, I should say, believe that Joseph got Mary pregnant, and rather than, and so he just chose to marry her instead of trying to, create problems. There's, they agree that he was crucified by the Romans. They know how crucifixion happens. They know all this kind of stuff. They don't believe that he was actually raised from the dead. Okay, there's a lot of things that are not missing that are in the 4 books that we have in here. There's also a growing number of what's known as the Gnostic Gospels, or what's known as the Forgotten Gospels, I guess you could say, that show different parts to Jesus' life, and a lot of those did not talk about the divinity of Jesus, or they did not have a lot of his same parables in them, or they told a completely different story. And so even the gospel accounts themselves are very different. They vary wildly in their stories of Jesus. And in fact, only 2 of them actually have a genealogy of Jesus. And it's kind of funny because one of them is told through Mary's line, and the other one is told through Jesus's, through the line of Joseph. So it's kind of funny that you should be mentioning that half of these flood legends don't have a divine warning. And that's because as people got further and further away from the norm, and as they got further and further away from God and the worship of God. And remember, this was before the Abrahamic religion. This was way before the Abrahamic religion. Okay? So when you... Let me see, I think it was actually Luke. So when we look at some of the different legends of oh, here it is. So the genealogy in Luke chapter 3 goes backwards. So Matthew starts at Abraham, goes down to David down to Joseph, father of Jesus. In this one, it talks about Joseph, the son of Eli, the son of Mathat, the son of Levi, the son of Melchi, the son of Jani, the son of Joseph, the son of Matthias, the son of Amos, the son of Nahum, the son of Eli, the son of Nagai, the son of Maath, the son of Matthias, the son of Simeon, the son of Josek, the son of Joda, the son of Johanan, the son of Ressa, the son of Zerubbabel, the son of Salathiel, the son of Neri, the son of Melchi, the son of Adai, the son of Kosam, the son of Elmadam, the son of the son of Jesus, the son of Eleazar, the son of Jorim, the son of Methat, the son of Levi, the son of Simeon, the son of Judah, the son of Joseph, the son of Jonam, the son of Elkiakim, the son of Meliah, the son of Menah, the son of Mattatha, the son of Nathan, the son of David. So it goes almost halfway up to get to David, and then it goes the son of Jesse, the son of Obed, the son of Boaz, the son of Salah, the son of Nashon, the son of Admin, the son of Arni, the son of Hezron, the son of Perez, the son of Judah, the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And then from Abraham it takes it back to the son of Shem. So, because they're showing you how it goes back through the line of Noah and then back to the son of Adam. Basically Seth, the son of Adam, okay? Who is the son of God, okay? But there are a lot of Gospels that don't even bring into account any of Jesus' genealogy. There's a lot of Gospels that don't even talk about how a lot of these things happen. And so at the Council of Nicaea, when they sat down to decide what they were going to put as the books of the Bible, because there were people that were passing around Gospels, okay, that had nothing to do with the divinity of Jesus. It might have just been a few stories of Jesus. It might have been, just some teachings of Jesus. It might have been just some quotes of Jesus. It might have been a few stories of Jesus' life that had nothing to do with anything that was in the main four Gospels that we have in here, which are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And the reason why I bring this up is because if you're going to sit there and say, well, because all of these flood legends, half of them don't have divine origins, we can't take all these on. Well, yeah, you can. Because here's the deal. When we look at the Gospels, they differ, right? If you talk to any cop, any prosecutor, okay, on the planet, any lawyer on the planet, okay, they will tell you that if you have a room, see, you have 4 witnesses to a crime, okay, and if they're all telling the exact same story with the exact same timeline, the exact same everything, what's likely happened with those people? If you're not thinking to yourself, well, that would make convicting criminals so much easier, well, yeah, it would, but don't people have different views of different events? If one person was north of the event, one person was east of the event, one person was south of the event, and one person was west of the event, are they all going to have the same view of the event? No. One person might think it was the middle of the day. The another person might think it was night. Okay? One person might think the story happened one way, another person thinks the story happened differently. It's how we line up the different accounts and say this, and this all form together to make one clear picture. And that's what we have with the Gospels. We have 4 different accounts, okay? One from Matthew, a tax collector, okay? One from Mark, a disciple of Peter. One from Luke, a disciple of Paul. And one from John, okay? The disciple whom Jesus loved. 4 wildly different accounts of Jesus' life. And there are a lot that line up, but there are a lot that don't. And that's how we know that it works, is because we can match up the parts that line up and we can go, wow, see? We know that this did happen because we have these guys telling stories that are very, very similar. Yes, some are different, but some are similar. Okay? Like, for instance, Matthew and Luke tell the story of the temptation of Jesus, and I think Mark actually mentions it very briefly. Okay? I think Mark just mentions that he was tempted by the devil. But Matthew and Luke both contain a story of the temptation of Jesus. They're told in two different ways. Okay? The events are the same. The telling is different. Okay? And in Matthew, it's he gets tempted by the bread, and then he's taken up to the temple, cast yourself down, and then he's taken up and shown all the kingdoms of the world. And Satan says, if you bow down and worship these, then I'll give you all these kingdoms. If you bow down and worship me, I'll give you all these kingdoms to rule. And Luke tells the last two out of order. So it says that, he tempts him on the bread, and then he takes him up to a high place and says, here's all the kingdoms of the world. I'll let you rule these if you bow down and worship me. And then he takes him to the temple and says, throw yourself off. So, here again, if this is your reasoning for not believing in the flood is because, oh man, half of these flood legends don't even come from divine origin, yeah, it's probably because at the time that these were written, which were a couple thousand years after the flood, okay, it's probably because, because I think it was like the earliest telling of the flood legend was the Gilgamesh, and that's like one of the ones that matches up the closest to the actual flood legend. But yet a lot of those all have the same thing in common. Okay? And so for this guy to stand there and say, well, half of them don't even have divine things, so, we can... No. It's because those people, their cultures may have evolved to the point where they didn't believe in God anymore, or they had maybe fallen away from the worship of gods. Or if you look at like the ancient Greeks, where they believed that the gods meddled in people's affairs, and that they were very cruel and petty and tyrannical in nature, and they didn't care about the humans that they supposedly placed on this earth. Okay? Would you think that Zeus actually warned people of a flood? I mean, come on, if you know some of the legends of Zeus, would you think that Zeus would have warned people about a flood? Knowing what we know about Zeus and some of the other gods? Hell no. They wouldn't have cared. Honestly, dude. So, yeah. I don't understand why this guy is so hung up on this, because if they all were the exact same story told time and time and time and time and time and time again, then of course it's going to get twisted. Okay? It's like this. If I told you a story, okay, and I told it to you every day for, like, say, 3 years, okay? Told you the same story over and over and over again, okay? And then said, now pass that down to your children. You were then to go out and to teach your children that story. Would you tell it in the same way that I told it? Maybe, maybe not. Okay? You may have something happen to you, and maybe you don't tell your child the story for a month. And then when you come back and try to tell them the story, you tell it to them in a little bit different way. And then you tell them, pass that down to your children. Now imagine that 50 generations removed, and, they're living in a completely different part of the world. It's going to vary wildly. Because I would be very, very surprised that it would equal the same thing every single time. And that's one of my biggest gripes when I started watching this. I'm like, geez, man, does this guy not even read the Bible? Like, has this guy not read the 4 Gospels that are contained within this Bible? Because they are completely different than what that is. And it just boggles my mind that he'd do that.
You would find some on islands, some being told by people who live in a country which borders the sea, and some being told by people who live 1,000 miles inland. But as you go through the list, one by one you notice that nearly all of these legends are from islands or countries which border the sea.
Not true. Not true. So what's interesting is one of the things that I wanted to look up. In Canada, it shows two. There's the Canada, the Cree, and then the Montagnais. They are the Inuit people, and they're, I mean, and he talks about USA, Alaska. I know it's not, I'm covering it, but he talks about that one too. The thing is, okay, that how would people in the middle of Alberta, nowhere near water, know this legend? Because according to this map I have, yeah, I mean, yes, the Cree live along waterways and up on Hudson Bay. The Innu, some of them were out on Nova Scotia, but most of them were actually inland. Yes, some of the tribe borders are kind of along the Hudson Bay and kind of down along with the Cree. But it's not necessarily, they weren't necessarily living like right on the sea all the time. Not every single one of them was. In fact, I would bet if I started looking up a lot of these, that they're not even near what, where this guy thinks they are. So, like, one of the things that I'm going to tell you is, this guy says Babylon. They lived on or near major waterways. Okay? Babylon is right about where modern-day Baghdad is. Okay? But they had a huge empire. Okay? And even though the city of Babylon was kind of where modern-day Baghdad is, that doesn't account for how they would have known about a man named Noah who survived in a boat. One other thing that doesn't make any sense to me is that in a little bit he's going to talk about how the Tigris and Euphrates end up kind of in the Turkish mountains where Mount Ararat is, but that's not how they flow. They actually flow from the mountains down to the sea. So even if somebody were to survive from there, doesn't necessarily say how they would end up in the mountains of Turkey from ancient Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. So, again, I think this guy is really reaching, okay? Let me see here. Kurnai. Alright, yeah, Kurnai. Kurnai people. Okay. Let me see here. I'm just looking up some of these tribes. Okay. It's hard to know where some of these tribes used to live, because we know that Burma's a fairly marshy country, but it's also, there's a lot of inland where there's not a lot of rivers and stuff. So it's hard to say exactly where all these people are. But then again, most civilizations are along waterways anyhow. Like, one of the things that he talks about is, it says in the USA, in Arizona, it says Papago. And let me see here, do they have... Because, like, the Papago Indians or Native Americans of USA, Arizona, are not necessarily right along a waterway. They're out in the middle of the desert. So how would a people living in the U.S. state of Arizona and the Mexican state of Sonora, how would those have known about a flood legend? And more to the point, how would they have had 5 of the 6 things in common with a flood legend? The only thing they didn't have was a divine cause. Answer me that one. That's what I want to know. Okay? Because it just seems to me that this guy is really kind of reaching when he says that it's like, oh, most of these, if not all of these, have all these, they live on islands or wherever. Yeah. But, I mean, you look at Australia, Bolivia, Canada to a certain extent, Alaska. You look at Fiji, French Polynesia, Guyana, New Zealand. You look at Hawaii, Vanuatu. There's 10 that are all out in the middle of the islands, and most of them have some of the closest flood legends. Maybe not necessarily divine cause, but humans spared, animals spared, preserved in a vessel, out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I mean, I think French Polynesia, okay, they didn't have anybody preserved in a vessel, but all the rest of it's the same. You have, let me see here, New Zealand, they have divine cause, they have humans spared, and they have preserved in a vessel. Peru, same thing. The only thing is they don't have them preserved in a vessel. Vanuatu, they have humans spared, animals spared, preserved in a vessel. So how would all of those islands that are very, very isolated from one another, how would those people have known that there was a worldwide flood that happened? Let alone that humans were spared and animals were spared in most cases. and some of them have preserved in a vessel. That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay? And so when I look at a lot of this stuff, I think he's doing this. He's reaching, okay? He's trying to find anything that he can where it doesn't, where he can say, yeah, these things don't happen, okay? And, you know, so how would all of these people have had all of these legends if there wasn't some truth involved? That's my question to him.
And in the odd case you think they're not, a small amount of research into the people and the tribes to which these flood legends derive reveal at one time they lived either by the sea or by major rivers. To be honest, considering how all these flood legends are derived from a period of time where they lived in ignorance of modern science and history, I would be more surprised if they didn't have flood legends.
So what does modern science and history have to do with flood legends? Are you talking about the fact that because they lived near the sea or near water, it caused them to have floods, and so they just attributed this flood legend because they had floods? That doesn't explain the people in the Sonora Desert. They wouldn't have had any flood legends. It doesn't explain, you know, like, it doesn't explain people living near coastal towns on relatively stable coasts. Yeah, the Pacific, okay, I'll grant you that. The Pacific does have some, you know, can cause some tsunamis because they have earthquakes. But that doesn't necessarily explain why people on, say, the east coast of the United States, or the east coast of Canada, for instance, or in Hudson Bay, where it's a relatively geologically stable region, you know, and they don't get too many floods, as far as I know. Mostly because they're so far north that the snow doesn't really melt there. So how would they have flood legends? Come on. Iceland? Yeah, Iceland sits on a volcano, but they don't flood. As far as I know. I mean, I could look it up, but as far as I know, they don't flood. So I guess I'm having trouble understanding where you're coming from with this whole modern history and modern science crap. Just because we understand certain things now doesn't necessarily mean that when somebody's house floods in Mississippi, okay, along the Mississippi River, that person isn't thinking that God isn't taking revenge on something because they sinned. Okay? Because God never said that He would never, ever stop flooding from ever happening again. He just said that when it did happen, He would see the rainbow and remember His promise to not flood the entire world again. God never said that we weren't going to be without natural disasters. God never said that we weren't going to have trials and tribulations in this life. And anyone who is saying otherwise is selling you a bunch of BS. Okay? And if that's what you believe, then I am sorry to say, son, you really, seriously need to check yourself. Last part.
But if you're still convinced by that table in the Insight book, that every single flood legend in existence today is derived from the one flood legend in the Bible, then can we apply that same logic to earthquakes? Can we say that every single earthquake legend around the world is derived from the Bible's viewpoint that God on occasion causes earthquakes? Still largely unsatisfied, I would go on to read...
Okay. Let's finish on this. Yeah. you can. Yes, we know that earthquakes are natural in origin, that it's the movement and shifting of tectonic plates. But again, did God ever say that you would never suffer another earthquake? God never said that He destroyed the earth with earthquakes. Never said that. Now, does it say that He moves mountains? Does it say that? Yes, it does, okay? I'm not disputing that. But comparing God flooding the entire world and then promising never to do that again, okay, is not the same thing as saying that when God comes to that when God causes an earthquake somewhere, okay, that He's not doing it for a reason. Because we know that the Holy Land is a relatively geologically stable region. But it came to light about 20 years ago, okay, and this happened when I was actually in a geology class. It came to light very briefly that there was actually an earthquake. It was buried very, very quickly because they didn't want this is some of the things that geologists do. They come out and then they say something, and then when they get when they're told how it backs up the Bible, they quickly renounce it and they say that it never happened. But some geologists were doing some study of some of the topography of the land surrounding Israel, and they found something very surprising in Jerusalem. There actually was an earthquake. Guess how long ago it was? Right around about between 30 and 40 AD is what they figured. Okay? Right around the time that Jesus was crucified in 33 AD, right? So, if God could send an earthquake at the moment His Son dies, and somebody can go and find that evidence and go, wow, does that mean that when they retract it that it didn't happen? No, it happened. They just didn't want people to know about it. Why? Because if you prove that the Bible is true, people start to mock you, okay? Because anytime a scientist comes out and says, hey guys, we know that this is what's going on, and we know that this happens, and we know that this is what it is, and that it backs up the Bible, and they start getting resoundingly mocked for it, then they come out and they say, well, actually it doesn't. Okay? That's why peer-reviewed papers are a bunch of crap. Because it's just a bunch of yes men slapping each other on the back saying, congratulations, we did well. That's all it is. Okay? So, if that's your view, then I'm sorry to say, buddy, you're wrong. Comparing the flood, a worldwide global flood, which we have evidence of all over the world, okay, geological evidence of all over the world, okay, and I'll talk about that more in the next section, yeah, then we know that that was an actual event that happens. Okay? That happened. So, honestly, I think you're just barking up the wrong tree because you're trying to attach meaning to something that shook your faith, and instead of using this time to try to back up your faith and to try to say to yourself, hey, I'm going to attack this from a religious zeal point of God caused this flood, God made this happen. If this kind of a thing causes you to look at and re-examine your faith, then I'm sorry to say, this isn't the problem. You are. Okay? And it's you who needs to check yourself. Okay? It's not... The Bible doesn't need to check itself. It's you who needs to check yourself. Okay? So, we'll end it here. I know it's been about 45 minutes, and so I'll call this a part, and then we'll pick this back up in the next part. I'll try to... I know I talked for a lot in this one because I was trying to find some of the different things, and like I said, I'll take a picture and I'll post it in the second one with all those different check marks on it, and I'll post some links to some of the different tribes, and like I said, Answers in Genesis will have a a lot on these flood legends and how they tie into the biblical account of Noah. So, thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.